Thank you for joining me today on Geezers of Gear, episode number 206. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stratum Productions. Stratum understands that successful events hinge on flawless execution. With years of experience in the audiovisual industry, Stratum Productions specializes in providing event planners with cutting-edge solutions that seamlessly blend technology and creativity. From intimate boardroom settings to sprawling conventions, they're committed to delivering experiences that resonate and leave a lasting impact on audiences of all sizes. Stratum Productions truly do stand out above the rest when it comes to event production. To learn more about what Stratum does and who they are as a company, please visit stratumpro.com. And today's podcast is also brought to you by Mainlight. Mainlight is a lighting rental provider who combine the resources of a national company with the personal touch of a local. To achieve that objective, Mainlight is proud to have opened 4 locations in the last 2 years. Mainlight is equally dedicated to expanding their rental inventory. They consistently purchase the latest technology in lighting, truss, and consoles. From the newest truss solutions to a full array of leading control consoles, your lighting will have the technological support it needs to reach peak performance. They also carry a robust inventory of IP65 rated fixtures, giving you a lighting solution to any outdoor venue, come rain, wind, or shine. From east to west, Mainlight is a partner you can trust with the gear you want. Visit mainlight.com to connect to reps at locations in Wilmington, Delaware, Nashville, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Teterboro, New Jersey. And, pardon me, last but not least, Geezers Grind. Please visit www.coffeecult.com and search for Geezers Grind. The reviews are coming in. People love this coffee as much as I do. I'm drinking it right now. It's an amazing, amazing coffee. And the best news is that by ordering it, all proceeds from Geezers Grind coffee go to Roby Backstage and support folks in our industry with medical or other challenges. So please visit cultwithak.com, coffeecult.com, and search for Geezers Grind. And I believe if you buy 2 bags, you get free shipping. So yeah, enjoy it as much as I do, if not more. Well, here I am. So thanks for joining me again today. I appreciate it. And first and foremost, I wanted to see if you have checked out last week's episode number 205 with David Packhouse, who is the guy but the guy that the movie War Dogs was about. Super interesting dude, really great product line, and just an unbelievable story. I mean, you're not going to hear many stories like this one. The guy literally was an arms dealer, an international arms dealer, going to countries all over the globe, selling millions of dollars in guns and ammunition to some fairly nasty people sometimes, all in the name of the U.S. government. So, yeah, just an incredible story. Again, a bit off the beaten path for Geezers of Gear. He's not a production manager. He's not a lighting designer, sound engineer, but he does have an audio company, a sound company, where he's created some incredible products. Actually, a bunch of my friends have placed orders on his website for some of his products. Some really cool stuff, but check it out. Episode 205, David Packhouse, really, really cool episode. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that once again, and this is going to sound like deja vu all over again, but GearSource is launching a new platform this Friday. Believe me, I want to, jump off a bridge just for saying that, but we've had quite a year, and as a result, we are now launching a new platform, again, 3rd time in 3 years. I would tell you that most companies who are in the marketplace business probably launch 3 marketplace platforms in 30 years. We've now done 3 in 3 years. It's going really well. We have an incredible team who are based in Australia and Vietnam who are building this product. I can't speak highly enough for the work that they're doing. We launch officially on Friday, and I would obviously love if everyone listening to this would go there and place an order or add a listing or do something, but we really appreciate the support we've gotten. I mean, it's been It's been a brutal year, probably the toughest 12 months of my life in the live events industry. And, I'm not whining. Nobody's going to want to listen to me whine, but it has been tough. It's been brutal. And we're getting through it. It's not easy, but we're getting through it. We're getting a lot of help. We're getting a lot of love. We're getting a lot of people who are patient and supportive. And we appreciate that very much. But come Friday, the site is going to be easier, faster. We've timed things like how long it takes to place a listing and how long it takes to place an order. They're between 40 and 60% faster. Pages load faster. Everything's faster. We've lightened it up a lot. We've taken away a lot of the dead weight. And so, yeah, it's going to be a great platform. We're really looking forward to getting this launched. We're looking forward to spending the next few weeks to get the bugs worked out of it. I promise you there will be some bugs. The platform's more secure. One of the things that a lot of our sellers are going to be very happy to hear is that payments are finally done properly. We've been trying to do this for 3 years, probably since the beginning of COVID. We want the money to flow completely away from us and directly to the seller. And believe it or not, it's not that easy to do. When you are a global company, the main global processor to do this is Stripe. And Stripe doesn't allow these multi-currency pay-ins and payouts and wire transfers that run our business. So it's fine if you're selling, a $10 item and people are paying with credit cards. But when you're selling $100,000 sound systems or lighting packages and people are paying by wire and want to be paid out by wire, it's a very different process and it's very incredibly complicated. And I know everyone thinks they can run their business or our business probably better than we can. Maybe you can, but I can tell you it's hard. And so the new system that we have, wires are completely embedded. ACH payments are completely embedded, both for pay-ins and for payouts. 4 currencies you can pay out with. We can pay out in US dollars, British pounds, euro, and I forget what the fourth one is, Canadian dollars. We will add more currencies on the payout in the future, Singaporean dollars and some other ones. But for right now, it's those 4 on payouts. And I believe it's 14 currencies on pay-ins. So you can pay in whatever your local currency is. And and the biggest thing is it actually creates an escrow account. So your money from the buyer goes straight into an escrow account that only you can receive funds from. So it pays our fee directly to us through a different account. Your proceeds on the sale based on our agreement, whatever it is, your proceeds on the sale go directly to an escrow account that is controlled by you. The only thing that we do is trigger when, based on where the sale process is, we trigger when that payout can go to you, and that also protects the buyer as well. So, yeah, just all over the place. It's just a better process, better site. It's going to work really well. We're really excited about it. This, I promise you, God willing, this is the last platform that we're going to do for at least 5 or 6 years. We're going to exhale for a minute now and actually chill out and maybe even, God forbid, make a profit. That would be cool. So, again, I appreciate everyone's support. I've had so many people reaching out to me saying, "Are you okay? I know it's very stressful." And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Honestly speaking, and this is going to sound pretty righteous, but doing the right thing is extremely hard. And this has been extremely hard and will continue to be hard until we completely get it right, which is going to take a few months probably. What else? Rumors, some rumor mill stuff. I've heard a couple of pretty big deals are done. I thought one of them was already public, but I went looking for it and I can't find it. So I don't think it is public unless I've just lost my mind. But from what I've told, Chauvet acquisition is basically complete. It's just in the final stages. And they're probably just being built. I actually know who they're being bought by. It's a larger private equity company. And I've heard a 4-wall deal is imminent. I've heard that from a lot of staff who have either exited or been asked to exit the company recently. That, they're in some form of due diligence at this point. And so we'll see. One thing I can tell you is when deals that big start happening, Both of those are fairly large. From what I remember, Chauvet is something like 600 million or $650 million, $700 million. It's quite a large number. And Four-Wall, I'm sure, didn't go cheap. But, these are large deals, and that's a sign of some things to come, I think, in our industry. I think 2024 is going to be a bit of a tumultuous, is that a good word? A bit of a interesting year for our industry. And I hope it's a good year. I hope it's tumultuous in a positive way, and it just keeps going nuts as it has been the last couple of years. But I feel like, we're going to see some changes. We're probably going to see some more roll-ups. We're going to see some more acquisitions taking place. The biggest problem out there right now is access to capital. And, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but interest rates are going up at an unbelievable rate. And I'm not talking about just mortgages. I'm talking about business loans, those lines of credit that companies are using to buy all of these shiny new digital consoles and lighting fixtures and mobile stages and whatever. That money is costing a lot more money now. And the other thing that's happening is a lot of the private equity or venture capital investors are kind of sitting on their wallets a bit because, they're getting 5 or 6% from the bank. And so they're like, I think I'll sit on the sidelines for a while here while this thing works itself out. So there's less capital available. There's a lot of unused capital out there. There's a shit ton of money in the world right now that's not being used. But a lot of it is just not in a hurry to be used. And, I speak from personal experience too on that one. So, our industry is a very capital intensive industry, and it requires a lot of money to make money. And if you don't have access to that money, what's going to happen is you're not going to get some of those bids that are coming along that say, I need the latest, greatest, whatever it is, line array system or digital audio console or lighting fixture that so-and-so just introduced, and it's $12,000 per fixture and I need 200 of them. You might not have access to that money. And I mean, obviously the best of you, the biggest companies with the greatest credit and all of that stuff, you're going to get your money. But the $5 to $10 million companies who've always paid their bills and always been good and everything, they've now run out of all the COVID money. They've run out of the access to easy COVID loans and stuff. And now reality is punching us all in the face. It's like, no, you can't, my bank can't lend you money right now. And so it's a weird time. I've definitely heard of a lot more layoffs, even from some of the bigger companies out there. I heard Martin laid off some people, a bunch of other brands that I've been hearing about laying off people. So it's not good, but I don't want to be, Nancy negative over here. I want to hype you up. But unfortunately, a lot of the news, the economy, the availability of money, like I said, new challenges in our specific industry are popping up. So 2024, I hope is going to be an amazing year. I fear that it might be a tough year for our industry. On a happy note, the Parnelli Awards are coming. It's really great seeing all of the people who are being nominated, friends of mine, friends of all of ours, both on the company side, but also individuals, lighting designers, sound engineers, production managers, etc. I love, that. I love that people get recognized for all of their hard work and effort. And, these people are out talking on Facebook, look what I did. And a lot of times they get a little bit of recognition from that, but they don't get a lot of industry recognition in general. And so it's nice when people are recognized and nominated for these awards. I like it. So that's great. And I'm moving on. Sorry for my long chat here, but moving along here. Today's guest is actually one of my favorite people. He's become famous for something very odd, for rolling around with this roller bag through trade shows. And I think 50% of you already know who I'm talking about, but it's a roller bag full of Hawaiian coffee. And he's at virtually every large global trade show. You'll see him at Plaza, you'll see him at LDI, you'll see him at Infocom. And I can't even really remember an LDI when I came home without a bag of Hawaiian coffee in my suitcase. Recently, I don't take them from him because until recently, I was using a Keurig machine. Sorry, shame on me, taboo, I know. But since I got into this coffee cult stuff, Jamie, the owner of Coffee Cult, convinced me I needed to get a proper bean machine. And so now I've got this DeLonghi Automatica thing that grinds the beans and turns them into coffee and makes your coffee and does everything. It's a beautiful machine. It changed my life. But so now I'm actually going to take Bob up on some coffee at the trade show this year. So anyways, yes, of course, I'm talking about Bob Harmon, probably one of the world's greatest long storytellers. If you follow him, you'll get his Thursday stories, and they're incredible. I mean, the guy should have written 20 books by now. He missed his calling on that. But anyways, let's go ahead and get Bob on. Hey, Bob.
Aloha, how are you?
Aloha. That's a fan-friggin-tastic shirt. I feel like I got to go get changed into my Cosmo clothing wardrobe in my closet there, you
I
know?
absolutely. I kind of remember when these used to be happy hour meetings on the internet, and it
Yeah.
was later in the day. Now you got me in this, crack of dawn, early in the morning, getting ready for you.
Well, it's late for the rest
But
of the
go ahead.
world. It's only early for you, you know, you Hawaiian people. Ah, it's amazing
That's
to see
true.
you. And it's funny you talk about the Zoom thing, and I was talking to my girlfriend last night, and she said, "Do you have a podcast this week?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got one tomorrow with one of my favorite people." And she said, "Who?" And I said, "Bob Harmon." And she goes, "Isn't that the Hawaiian guy with the great stories?" And I said, "Yeah, that's him." Because she would be a voyeur on half of our Zoom calls. She'd be there without her camera on, like one of those just the phone number
That's
on
so
the
awesome.
screen, you know. And so she remembered you from all the calls and your crazy stories, and not crazy, amazing stories. I actually want to talk to you about that because,
Thank you.
you're, excuse me, you're literally one of the best storytellers I know. Like there are some good
Thank you.
storytellers in our industry, of course, right? But you're
Absolutely.
you're right up there, especially written word. You know what I mean? Like you write. I think you missed your calling in a sense. Like you probably should have taken over, Nook's gig or one of these people's gigs at publishing a magazine. Although I'm sure you make more money running a lighting company, but
I
yeah,
do, but I think
yeah,
you know I well Nook is the person that really got me going, and that's
yeah,
one of the things during the pandemic. I started writing because what else was I going to do? And I wanted to write down all the stories I knew before in time takes them from me. You know how that
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So, well,
yeah.
yeah, I
What
learned I could write.
you
Amazing.
still you still remember a lot better than most people though. Like I have some great stories in me somewhere buried below like vodka and tequila and God knows what other substances. And
Sure.
I just don't remember them all. Like somebody will say to me, "Remember that time when we were in, wherever and we did that thing?" And I was like, "No, that wasn't me." And they're like, "Yeah, remember?" And then like, I mean, if it was today's day, they would just bring out a cell phone picture and go, "Look, here's proof."
Yeah,
But
right.
back then we didn't thank God we didn't have cameras and most of it wasn't recorded. Although it's kind of a
Yeah,
bummer.
I think we're lucky for that at times.
We are. Yeah. I mean, I always wonder, that whole Me Too movement and stuff. What if they ever got to our industry? Like some of the characters in our industry and in the the musician concert touring industry. Like I've seen bad things happen. So uh, thank God that they haven't gotten to them yet because that could be nasty.
Yeah, let's not go
No,
there.
no, let's not. So I was mentioning in the sort of pre thing here, the intro, that that you've become famous basically for dragging a wheeled bag around trade shows and handing out coffee. And, it's a pretty incredible sort of branding thing that you've created. And like all the cool people from the shows go home with, a bag of, and it used to be Kona. So I don't know if you've cheaped out because it's, like the sign of the times or something, but it used to be Kona coffee and now it's like some other brand or something, right? I'm just kidding. I don't know.
It's all Lion Coffee. I had a friend who had Lion Coffee down the street from me,
Oh,
and
really?
anyways, it's what I chose to bring because I yeah I appreciated him and the entrepreneur he was.
Yeah.
But it was also a way for me, you know, to give away my own awards, if you will. It's people I admired in the industry, and it certainly breaks the ice. It lets me just, approach people. Nobody says no,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's gotten me a lot further than I would have gotten if
Well,
had I not. And I
people
really
remember
appreciate the
you.
people
You
in
know,
our
it's
industry.
it's an incredible calling card, and people
Thank you.
remember you. Like, Bob's the guy that gives me coffee every year. I love it. And honestly, like I was saying on the intro, that I always loved coming home and opening my suitcase and going, "Oh yeah, I got a bag of really good coffee. This is amazing." And I love it. I love the Lion coffee, and the original one I think was Kona coffee or something. Um, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. And like I was telling you, I think last year at LDI, I've been
Well, thank you.
using Keurig coffee makers, God forbid, and so I've turned it down the last couple times
Right,
you've
right.
offered it to me, and but now I'm back to a better coffee maker, so I might take you up on it this year.
No problem.
Should I be lucky enough to see you?
And you'll see me this year.
Good, good.
I believe you will.
Yeah. Why was it last year when you like flew in on Friday night and left like Saturday morning or something insane?
Oh, yeah, it is pretty insane. This year as well, I'll be doing a show for the Kamehameha Schools is a big, big property here. Um, and it basically teaches the Native Hawaiian kids, uh, yeah, you have to have that in your ancestry or you can't attend. But
Oh,
once you go there, it's like prep school for college, and they're going to take care of you and get you where you should be in life. And
that's
it's
cool.
an amazing program. It'll be broadcast for television, a couple hundred moving lights. And I think I'll finish that show, and 2 hours later, I'll be on a plane to Vegas.
Oh, Jesus.
So let's see how this works.
Was it last year or was it the year before when it was like just an insane schedule where I think you were there for like 6 hours or something crazy?
Yeah, I was there for a day, LDI
Yeah.
for a day.
Yeah. That was nuts. That's a lot of flying for one day of LDI.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah. You're a masochist. So, what's news? Like, I mean, I literally probably haven't spent much time talking to you since COVID. One of the things people may or may not know about Bob and Eggshell and Hawaii in general is when we went through all of this COVID stuff and we were doing the Zoom calls every week. You're such a nice guy, so you never whined about it, but you had it so much worse than everybody else. Like just more strict
Nearly a year
lockdowns,
longer. Oh my gosh.
longer, harder, worse. Like, when people were allowed to do shows for 50 people, you were allowed to do a show for 3 people and stuff like that. It was just terrible. It was terrible. But like I said, you never really whined about it.
We've come such a long way because I remember we'd actually wash our food after we bought it at the supermarket, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, and how
Yeah.
extreme that was.
Yeah.
And you'd be locked down for 2 to 3 weeks if you got COVID, and I think now it's like 5 days and test and make sure you're good, and
Yeah.
it's just not the same world it was.
No, no. Again, I mean, I think it's something that we'll tell grandkids or, future young people or whatever. We'll tell them about this and they'll be like, "Nah, you're kidding me, man. That ain't true." It just seems so bizarre what we've gone through, and it almost seems like it didn't happen, although I don't know that I'll ever forget that. It was wacky.
Yeah, I hope we never see anything like it again, but
Yeah.
never know. I mean, Hawaii does have it's a beautiful place, and we are a speck in the ocean at the
Yeah.
crossroads of the Pacific.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize how the middle we are. It's 6 hours to fly to California. It's 7 hours to fly to Japan,
Yeah.
and seven
It's
more
crazy.
to go vertical and go to Alaska. So we're just kind of out here by ourselves in
Yeah.
paradise.
How's Maui doing now? Like after everything, obviously that they went through with the fire.
It's going to be an interesting thing. I mean, there were so many things that fell apart during that. Um, they've had wildfires and the like before, but they've never had this onshore wind gale forces. They basically, the way they usually take care of this is they pick up, ocean water and they dump it and put the fires out. But they couldn't
Yeah.
get the helicopters in the air. And
Wow.
that was the first thing that was devastating. The second was kind of a fight between um, firemen saying, what's happening here? The hydrants aren't working. Turn the power back on, and the power guys knowing that broken lines were causing fires. So
Yeah.
it was just there's a lot of discussion and blame to go around, and I'm sure there's going to be things that come out of that.
Well, there's already
What a
some
lot of
people
people
that
don't know,
lost their jobs and stuff too, right? Like, I didn't the big emergency guy or whatever lose his job?
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, as he should. What were you saying? A lot of people
yes,
don't know.
yep. Have I frozen on you?
Yeah, you keep sort of freezing in and out here.
What a lot of people don't know is that, right. I wonder if you should pause for a second and I'll
Sure.
reconnect.
Okay, we're back.
We're back.
Bob has renovated his internet solutions.
We'll try it. See how
Yeah,
that works.
that looks good.
But what it was, we were talking about the fires over in Maui, and what a lot of people don't remember or know is that commercial property was only 9% of what is gone. We all remember, the Front Street. We remember, drinks on Front Street and the great music that was there, the
Right.
unbelievable bohemian stores that were there. But that's only a minor amount of what went away.
Yeah.
Over 90% were houses and families that have been there forever. Luckily, our early numbers were that thousands and thousands of people had perished. It's wrong to say luckily, but it's down to about 100 now.
Oh,
So it's concerning, but it's not
well, it certainly
quite the
looked
extreme.
it looked like it was going to be much worse. When you see people jumping in the ocean, to get away from the fire and stuff, you're
True.
expecting very high casualty numbers. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Well, they
hadn't
had,
heard that it's gone down to 100. So, like you said, anything more than zero is tragic, but it's certainly a lot less than the thousands that they talked about.
yeah, certainly so.
So, what do all
But
these
things are
displaced people do? Like, I mean, it's Maui. It's not like, you can just go rent apartments in New York City or something.
well, that's kind of an interesting thing. Some of the hotels are actually where they're staying. Um,
Oh, wow.
uh, the There are hotels that are beyond Lahaina, in the Kapalua area and the like, and I think they're going to have a tougher time of it.
Yeah.
Generally, when people come for conventions and that kind of thing, it's to celebrate how good we're doing, and to get there by driving through Lahaina is not all that appropriate to that end. So
Yeah.
the other hotels, the Wailea area and the like, is very busy. We just did Tony Robbins
Oh,
over
really?
in Wailea.
Yeah. Doesn't he have like a huge property over there somewhere in Hawaii?
Most celebrities do. It's a
Yeah.
big
No,
deal.
but I thought he had like a place where he actually does meetings and events and stuff where he invites people there. I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing something wrong in my head. I know Wiseman's headed over there. He goes over every year right around the time of LDI. Everybody goes to LDI. Wiseman goes to Maui.
Makes sense to
So,
me.
yeah, he said, I asked him
It,
if the
it,
house that he normally rents, because he rents the same house every year too. And I asked him if it's still there. And he said, yep. So he's going back to the same place, which is good. I haven't been to Hawaii in
which is
so
great.
long. I need to get there. I love Hawaii.
You got to come. You got to come for our 50th next year. It'll be, I'm sure, a blowout celebration.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk to you about that because that's outrageous. You know, I mean, for a business in our industry to survive to 20 years is generally incredible. But when you told me that next year is your 50th year, so what is that? 1974 then, right? You started in 74.
1974.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is wild. At what,
Yep.
like 7 years old or something, right, Bob?
I was 16. I
Yeah,
was 16,
yeah,
but I was a sprite 16.
yeah.
But the first show I did was Brewer and Shipley, Ballad of a Country Dog, One Toke Over the Line. and that was their two big hits. And they were at the University of Hawaii. And some people know, some people don't, that my brother in California had psychedelic lighting, like
Okay.
oils on the walls kind of stuff.
Right.
And somehow I got into the film side, and I had movies. And my first business I started when I was 13, and I was showing films in a pizza parlor.
I remember
And
that.
yeah, and so that was great. At 13 years old, wearing the straw hat and the suspenders, and I was a cute looking kid. And
Yeah.
by 16, my interests had changed some, and I was, girls were out there, and there's places to go and hanging out with my buddies. And somebody said, "Where did you get these films?" And because I used to show them at my brother's oil shows, I said, "Oh, I got them from a lighting company I used to work with." And he went, "Really? You do lighting?" And I went, "Well, yeah." Not that I had any gear. And
Right.
the guy goes, "Oh, that's kismet." And that's the first time I'd ever heard that word.
Yeah.
I kismet, okay, destiny. And I said, so, I'm kind of taken aback, and he explains, and he goes, I'm a promoter, and I just did Diodato at the University of Hawaii, and it was raining, and the guy that I had helping me with lights, well, the wires were glowing red during the performance, and it was raining on them at the edge of the tent. And Diodato said, "You're never doing another show. I'll make sure of it."
Wow.
And I have a show this weekend. Can you do it for me? And I'm, yeah, yeah, we could do that. And so I had to go build a lighting rig. And I'm sitting there going, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
You know,
What?
but but my parents were entrepreneurs, and if they taught me anything, they taught me that no doesn't exist. You
Yeah.
just
Say
do,
yes.
you
Say
know,
yes and figure it
and
out.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed lights, and that was the easiest because I'd always helped out the drama department, and there were some lights to be had there. And there was a TV department, black and white, in our high school of all places, and I was able to borrow a couple lights there. But the intercom was kind of an interesting trick because, frankly, not only do we not know what to say on them because we'd never done a show before, but we also needed it. We knew we needed them, so we took a Marshall amp and we got it hooked up. And a buddy of mine, we got headsets from the foreign language department, and my buddy yells from the other room, and we're 2 days out from the event, and he goes, these aren't going to work. There's some kind of circuit in these headsets. And I go, yeah, but the show's on Saturday, and we can get it fixed by Monday. We'll get it going. So
Wow.
so we got our headsets, and I could communicate at least one way. But I'm still looking in this book, and I'm sitting there going, now I got to get these lights in the air somehow. I don't know how we're going to do this. And when I went to school, high school, the overthrow in Hawaii was less than 100 years before. Great grandfather and mother would certainly recall these things.
Hmm.
And it was rough at that time. Um, I went to public school. I don't regret it at all. It certainly got me places, and of course, getting into doing lighting in the music industry got me other places too within that Hawaiian hierarchy. But we'll come back to that story.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so I need these towers, and I'm flipping through a book, and this group of local guys comes in, and they're just playing around and stuff. And now there's two lines in the cafeteria that come to here, and then they converge toward the center where you're going to pick up your food and come back out and eat it. Those lines are defined by a 2-inch pipe that is between poles, that is about 8 or 10 feet between them. And so they're just lining up on it. These kids are lining up on it and goofing around. And well, I think they got the pipe loose a bit. It starts to move some. And so the next bigger guy clears them out, and kind of throws his weight on that pipe too. And he's got it almost moving. And the leader, who was on the football team, and you know, in high school, let's see, the leader in a football team might be 250, 300 pounds. I mean, these are big kids. And
Hmm.
he throws all of his weight on it, and the pipe immediately bends, the bolts fly out of the wall, and it clanks to the floor. And all the other kids are going, "Oh my God, they're going to beat us with pipes.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because all I could think is the word kismet.
Uh,
This is my opportunity. I need these pipes.
yeah.
And so I went up to the biggest guy, and he's kind of like really taken aback that I've just gone straight to him and said, I need these pipes, but these bent ones won't do me any good at all. $2 each. I'll give you a nod, and let's gather these up. And but I want you to be in command so they line up properly, so the pipes will stay straight.
Yeah.
And they jump up and they throw their weight on these pipes. The bolts flew out of the wall, clanged to the floor, and we loaded them up. And that's going to become the crossbars for how I'm going to hang the lights.
That's
And I
crazy.
took that with some forklift pallets and mounted it, so now it's standing up. But it's it's pretty wobbly. So because I've been on catamarans, I've got spare parts, and so we added guy lines to it. So that helped somewhat. But after you got the lights up there, it was still top heavy, and so I had to borrow people's spare tires. We stacked the spare tires on the
Oh my
pallet first,
God.
and then we
Jesus.
ran these lines up to this thing. And somewhere, I think it was the Toyo Theater went out of business, and I absconded with these auto transformer dimmers. You might remember them. They have like
Yeah.
giant steering wheels for every one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got four channels, and I've got four of these wheels. So a crossfade is like that,
I'll work
red to
out.
blue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've got
Yeah.
four of these going, and we actually did this show. And the only thing I couldn't fake was the follow spots. So we rented those, and I
Yeah.
had two kids on them. They ran them, and the promoter runs up to one of my spotlight friends, Kason, and he goes, "I can't believe you kids pulled this off. Oh my God, I'm so indebted to you." And but you got to tell Bob, these guys. I think they're going to come out and do an encore. Now, I'd never done a show before, so I didn't know what an encore was. And of course, he's speaking into his headset that he's wearing, and oh, I didn't tell you that the Marshall ant fell out of the truck on the way over the hill to do the show. So there was no
Of
connection
course they did.
whatsoever. It didn't matter because, all I did told my spot operators is I wouldn't know what to tell you anyway, guys, but I know you have to look really important and stare at the stage a lot, very intently. And that's what
Yeah.
they did.
Oh
And of
my
course,
God.
he's started repeating this promoter saying, don't let him tear down. He's unplugging things. And he eventually just grabs the headset off Kason's head and he goes, well, he'll listen to me. I'm the promoter.
Yeah.
And he puts that headset on, and I'm obviously not reacting at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he follows the wire down and he sees this empty XLR that's
Dangling
hanging in
plugged.
midair.
That's
Damn,
hilarious.
it cost me half the $300 I charged for the entire gig.
Are you kidding?
But I did. No, well, yeah. So I made $150. We were thrilled, and that was show one.
You probably spent it all on beer. As
Well,
you do.
maybe.
Yeah, as you do.
Well, drinking age was 18 back then.
And
It's
you were
not anymore.
16.
Yeah. Well, just an echo away.
Yeah.
I will tell you, by the way, because I had friends in the industry, the first time I'd ever snuck into a bar and the first time I'd ever been kicked out of the bar was I was with some friends. They were musicians and they were playing. And they said, well, so kid, what do you want? I'm trying to think. I never really actually ordered a drink in a bar, but I'd certainly seen James Bond movies and I thought I need to sound really sophisticated like I do this all the time. Um, I'll take a gin on the rocks, no ice, please.
Yeah.
I was immediately thrown out.
Yeah. Friggin' genius. That's hilarious. Gin on the rocks, no ice.
No
Hold
ice.
the ice. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. So, I mean, did you decide at that show, like, this is it? This is what I'm going to do with my life for the next 50 years?
Well, it certainly crossed my path, and because I did do that show, we were asked to do several more. And a
Hmm.
year later, with the first money I'd actually ever borrowed, and I think you and I had a conversation about this, that one of my neighbors, he was a child's pediatrician and a child's dentist, and he loaned me $60,000,
Yeah.
and I gave him one third of my business till I could pay him back, and that's well over a quarter million today
Yeah.
and uh, I was 16.
Yeah.
And within a
That's amazing.
year, we did lighting for Kiss on their
Yeah.
maiden run through Hawaii.
That's really, really incredible. That's such a cool story. And so the reason, part of the reason you're bringing this up is, obviously next year is 50 years for Eggshell lighting. So was it called Eggshell in the very beginning?
Somewhat. I'd kind of, well, it actually started because at the time we were freighting equipment back then, there really wasn't a freight department. Freight and baggage were the same people.
Yeah.
Just the guys who handled baggage when they'd see road boxes now finally showing up because they're getting to be popular in our business, they would take a walk and go away because this is serious work now.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the baggage handling guys.
Uh,
You guys got this.
yeah.
So, anyways, I had a friend of mine. He's much older, and he was in his, I think, early 40s. And again, I'd never shipped equipment out of islands in my life,
Yeah.
and I'd been given an opportunity to go for the first time. And when I went to the window, which overlooked the airplanes coming in and out, there's this guy. His name was Randy Nutt. And Randy, I said I needed his help, told him my dilemma. And he said, "Look, kid, I'll take care of you. I just got to receive my soundboard, my brand new soundboard. I paid $20,000 for that thing. And I just did
Damn.
my first show in Maui with it. And we both watched with great pride as the door opened on the side of the airplane and his board falls out of the airplane to the
No.
ground and shatters. The case is just toast, and there's nobody there in response. He's now fit to be tied and swearing a sailor's tune. And he's just yelling at him, "What the are you going to do about this?" And they handed the insurance papers like it was just matter of fact. And
Yeah.
they turned their back on it, went back into the corner to smoke cigarettes. And so now I'm terrified, you know. And but
Yeah.
they come to me and they go, "So kid, what's in your cases?" And I said, "Eggs. There's
Ah,
eggs in our cases."
that's
And while this
hilarious.
guy's filling this his paperwork out, unbelievably, these guys are carrying all my steel stuff onto the airplane with no connection to what it is, but it's eggs.
Ah,
And
that,
unbelievably, for the next 6 months, our equipment, well, was marked perishable. It would bump baggage.
oh my
It went,
goodness.
it went, air freight was subsidized at 7 cents a pound. And as I say, yeah,
Really?
it was just unbelievable. It would get anywhere we wanted. And so that was really a train to ride for a bit. And then so one day I'm sitting there going, "Look, guys, I'm looking for a dimmer rack. It's about, I don't know, about this high and about that wide." And they went, "Oh, you're the egg guys. Yeah. So it's like a refrigerator, right?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a refrigerator."
Yeah.
And he comes out of the back room, out of the deep freeze, and he's got a forklift, and the rack is like sweating because it's 85 degrees, and
Yeah.
they took it out of the freezer, so it's like dripping water down the
Oh
sides.
my
And
goodness.
and I turned to this guy who's obviously 30 years older than me, and I said, "Look, look, son, it's a joke, right? You know that. This is the Eggshell Light Company." And there it was.
That's wild. I don't think you've ever told me that story. I had no idea. That's an incredible story. I love that. Eggs. And so they
Eggs. There's eggs
handled
in
your
my case.
equipment so carefully from then on. That's amazing. And the 7 cents a pound or whatever, that's so funny. I love it. That's a great story. So that was how early though? That was like within a few months of you doing your first gig or a year later or like what was your lighting company called when you did the first gig? Or was it just Bob Harmon's lighting
Uh,
guy?
it was pretty much Bob and his buddies at that point,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but but it was the first freight inner islands that was, and that would also turn out to be well, that was George Carlin. We went to
Hmm.
Maui to Lahaina to do a show with George Carlin,
Oh
and
wow.
I think that really opened my eyes.
Yeah,
The we had household dimmers I had electronic guys from electronics class, and they hopped them up with 40 amp triacs so that they ran 2,000 watts on each one. And I think I had a box, and oh, you know what? That was where the Marshall went. We went back and got the Marshall amp. The amp was toast, but we used the empty case and mounted these four dimmers across in it. And actually, I think it was six because I'd worked out a way in one of these shows. I would take a ruler and since I liked old movies, and I'd watched The General with Buster Keaton. And I remember that the pictures of the locomotive, and the side of a locomotive, there's an armature, and it's like, driving each of the steel wheels. And I realized, wait a second, I could run if I just put drill holes into these rotary caps of household dimmers, then I could put small screws in it, and I could use a bar, and I could make presets by capturing the holes into the ruler. Anyways, so we
Jesus.
did this show with George Carlin, and it was just nuts. And I got to travel with him to and from the airport. He would just get the only thing on stage would be a list of, it wasn't really even a set list. It was a handwritten thing. And there would be at least a dozen or 18 different things, the seven words, the infamous
Yeah.
seven words, and shortness, and all these things that would just trigger. He didn't need anything more than that. He didn't need a
Yeah,
teleprompter,
it wasn't
and he thought it was
scripted. It was
great.
just like highlights, right? Just like reminders.
Exactly.
Remember to talk about balls, or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, that's
So
hilarious.
what he really liked, I mean, I need to find this.
And man, could that
Um,
guy go on rants too. Like
oh
unbelievable
my
rants.
gosh.
Yeah, loved it.
So, so he fell in love with our shirts,
Oh,
and
really?
our shirts had the early. Hang on a second. Pause me for a sec. I'm gonna
All
find this.
right. Pausing.
Sorry.
All right, we're back. We took a little break because Bob had to trick me into figuring out how to work this software. So here we are. We actually have a picture on the screen. So who's this?
This is George Carlin. I'm still in high school. This is our shirts. He saw us wearing them. We did this show in the Outer Islands with George Carlin over in Lahaina, and he thought we were just gonzo and unbelievable. And he saw this shirt that we all had made. They were silk screened. And he goes, guys, I've got to get one of your shirts. And I said, well, I just made enough for the crew. And one of my younger guys says, well, started taking the shirt off his back. And I said, wait, George, you need to promise to wear this tonight on stage.
That's
And
wild.
without a question, he did that. Now, he didn't sign it that day because obviously back then pictures were developed and time passed. And
Yeah,
20 years later, I would meet up with him, and I showed him this picture of him backstage at the Shell, and he goes, "Oh my God, I love that shirt. I wore that sucker out,
that's
and he
hilarious.
signed it for my crew and the like. And back then, in '74, this young upstart lighting company was being worn by the talent on the stage, and I would hear no end of it.
That is absolutely awesome. Hang on, what's the next picture you want me to bring up? Because you gave me a bunch of
Um,
them.
yeah, let's go to the one right above. Actually, let's just dump the picture for a sec. Get ready to bring up the second one, though. I'm going to tell you the story first.
Okay, hang on. Let me get rid of this one.
You seem to have frozen a little bit.
I did?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
All right, so I'm going to tell you over my shoulder, right there. I can't make it any bigger, but up there, right behind me, is the Sunshine Festival. This is Diamond Head Crater, which was a big deal in the '70s. We would have concerts there all the time. And
hang on.
once a year, actually, it'd be 4th of July and for New Year's Eve. So I can duck out of the way a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, they were unbelievable. Gosh, Journey played there. Flo and Eddie played there. A lot of great talent. But at that point in time, they really didn't have any lights. And we were a young lighting company, and we just wanted to attend this, particularly if we could get backstage.
Yeah.
So I had a friend of mine. His name was Bob Payton. He was the production manager, and someplace I'll just say I had come across a couple of street lights, And I mean, we're talking these giant, big halogen, 1500-watt massive bulb things. And I said, gosh, when you guys are finishing up on the main stage, the second stage, which is all these local acts, it's going to be pitch dark. And you really need us to do lighting for that. He goes, fine, yeah, you should help those guys out, but just stay away. Don't go to the main stage, backstage. Whatever you do, don't talk to Ken Rosine. He's the promoter. I said, Ken Rosine, who's that? And he goes, nobody you want to meet. And we did our thing, and we set those lights up, and when we were getting hungry, and we didn't really have passes. We were brought in, behind backstage to go set this up. So we go searching around, and I see people coming out of a backstage stage trailer, and we go, oh, and they have food. And went, this must be crew meals. And so we charged into there and had our fill, and nobody really noticed that we were there yet. And in the distance, there's this guy. Turns out he was Ken Rosie, and he's the promoter. And he's talking to this really pretty gal, and she's kind of short, and he's saying, geez, I don't think you're going to be able to go on this year. We've really gotten delayed today, and I was hoping to sneak you guys on. Maybe in 6 months when your record comes out, then maybe we can just do an official concert or something. And Bob Payton is there, the guy who'd let me in the door, and I kind of stepped around him because he'd honed in on us, hearing that we were in the backstage trailer eating food where we shouldn't be. And so he's like there, and then I kind of like pushed him to the side for a second. I said, "Are you Ken Rosine?" And Ken goes, "Yeah, and who is this kid?" And I said, "Mr. Rosine, I think we could help you. We have two lights, and they're putting lights so that other people can strike the secondary local stage. But give us 15 minutes. I'll bet we could get a couple of poles, and we could stand on the stage left and right. And gosh, maybe this gal could play." And now you can go to that picture.
Oh my God.
They were finishing, no, not that, but we're coming back to that. Go to the next one.
All right, hang on. Let me get this one gone. The next one. I got to figure out
It-
which is the next one.
if you see titles, it's kind of a tent picture, and there's a bright light on stage right.
Okay, I think it's this one. Please.
Yes. So if you look really super careful, you're looking at Christine McVie, John McVie, and Stevie Nicks, and this is that incarnation of Fleetwood Mac, and their album, self-titled album, has not come out yet. This is the
That
first
is
show in the United
crazy.
States. And that bright light is my buddy's on stage left. That bright light is me on stage right, putting the light on these guys. So after dark at the Crater Festival, which is the only time that show went after dark in those days.
That is
And
wild.
yeah,
That's wild. I'm sorry for the people listening. This is probably really boring, but I'll try and post the pictures in the podcast or something so you can see them. But yeah, that's super cool. What a great picture.
yeah. And
Wow.
actually, I told this story without that picture. I wrote it up, and somebody said, "Wait, I've got a photo for you," and they sent that picture to me. I'm going,
Oh, wow. That must have blown your mind seeing that picture.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that happens, as you write these stories, A, you remember more, and
Yeah.
B, people come to you with more background and things that you either
Yeah.
forget or never had that vantage point.
Yeah. Tell me about this picture.
Nook,
Yeah.
that's Nook, and that's of course a Grandma one. Um, People don't know that before the Grandma one, there was a scan commander and a light commander at MA Lighting. That was their come back to the Celco consoles. But the scan
Right.
commander was one of the first lighting boards that they ever did. And I was selected among 20 other people, I should say 19, because the total was 20, to go to Germany, to Paderborn, and to look at mock-ups that would become the Grandma One. And I think that's partly because we're in Hawaii and there's a lot of different influences here, whether it's from Japan or Korea, and we represented a different batch of lighting directors. So that would become that console. That's why I like this picture. But at the same time, he's talking to follow spots, and he's done many a story about that.
Yeah.
Um, and gosh, I remember, of course, we know, Nook passed a couple of years ago, and I wrote a story, and I'd like to bring this up because it's getting to be the holiday season again.
Yeah.
And I remember that when Nook passed, it really affected me greatly. Nook had been a real push when I wrote things. He would read everything I wrote, give me suggestions, and he was a mentor.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting because I remember waking up. I didn't have the initial reaction. I saw the flood of and fury on Facebook of people for days, and it took me a while to come to grips with this and write a story. And I remember that, I got up in the middle of the night, as this happens when you get older, and I have to use a restroom. And like it or not, I went to Facebook for a minute because I couldn't go back to sleep immediately. And because a gal had put a like to one of the stories I wrote, what really caught me was the comment of Nook that was right above it. And it took me back. And I
Yeah.
remembered that he'd been there during all these times and read all these things and became a fan, like I was reading his back page. And then I wrote, because of the season, the holiday season, I remember the impression of meeting Nook when you go to an LDI, that he would always stand up. He wouldn't remain seated. He'd give you a big bear hug. He would smile ear to ear, and he this was kind of his off time of sorts because he'd let his beard get a little bigger. So a bearded guy and a little bit of a pot belly and always jolly, and he would laugh with a chortle like Santa. And
Yeah.
so at that point, I renamed him Saint Nook.
Oh,
And I hope he
wow.
gets remembered that
I
by
love
that,
that one.
because
I love that.
that kind of encompasses Nook.
Yeah.
Saint. So
You know,
long live Saint Nook.
yeah. Amazing guy. I mean, certainly one of the guys that carried a lot of weight in our industry that um, is missed by everyone. It's crazy. Him and I had been talking about doing a podcast for about a year, and he couldn't do it while he was with PLSN because Terry Lowe and I just don't always get along really well, and so Terry didn't like his guys going on my podcast or whatever. So but then when Nook was out of there and when he had finished writing his book, he was like, Marcel, let's do this. Let's get it done. Come on, let's do this thing. And then he started doing chemo, and he just kept saying, you know what? Next week I think my voice is going to be a bit better. Next week. Give me
Mm,
one more week, I think my voice is going to be better. And he kept scheduling the podcast with me, and I couldn't wait to do it. Nook, like you, is an incredible storyteller. And so I really, really wanted to do this, and so did he, but he didn't want to do it with a voice that was unrecognizable. And so
got
there
it.
was there was a little bit of vanity there, or whatever you want to call it. He wanted his voice to sound, the normal raspy, not the new raspy that he had, with the
I can
chemo and
picture that.
stuff. But yeah, so it was really sad we never got to it. Unfortunately, his voice never got better. So bummer.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, here,
So,
here, Nook.
anyways, yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you for
really
being there.
bumming me out now. Now I'm really depressed, and
Ah, well, let's
yeah,
let's go a different way.
yeah.
Let's go look at the picture that is after George Carlin.
Well, I hope it's this one.
It is. This is my yearbook photo,
Oh my
and
goodness.
and it's titled "Class Clown" at the bottom.
Yeah,
But
that's a
where
real
this comes
shot.
from is My father was an entrepreneur. He had a house, or we had a house on the beach in an area called Lanikai. And there's two islands offshore, about a mile and a half out. And a friend of mine and our fathers would sit so wrapped up in what their day was going to be that they were missing this unbelievable sunrise that greeted them every single day.
Yeah.
And he said, we just have to break this up somehow. We've got to bring their eyes back. And I think we both said we'd stay over at the other buddy's house, and we gathered up several more friends, and we went out to the Mokulua Islands for the night before. And we had come across in there was a discount section, a place called Holiday Mart, and there had these bozo punch clowns. And I just bought one out of fun and humor, and we filled it up. And oddly, I threw it into the air, and we were all kind of like playing around, and it landed on the electric wires coming into our house, and immediately was there, just floating back and forth for an unbelievable amount of time, like 15 seconds or so. It was in balance,
Yeah.
and then it fell over and came down. Of
Yeah.
course, it has sand in the bottom, and we immediately took that thing and ran it out to the ocean, grabbed it by an ear, and we threw it out into the water. And those ears would catch the wind, and they would face forward, and the sand would keep it from capsizing. So on that island where all of us buddies were there the night before, we launched about 25 of these
Oh,
across
Jesus.
the skyline. So people started coming out of their houses. People, we'd managed to let these go, and they would come in so leisurely that we'd managed to boat to the shore to see the reaction. And parents would be like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I remember an old man. It's the military. The military is doing something out there. I'm not sure what that is. And eventually, it became obvious they were bozo punch clowns, and all the kids that stayed with their parents and weren't going to school yet were now gathered on the beach with family. And my father, which didn't have time because he was an entrepreneur all the time, he took the day off that day, and we had a day, and it was because of Bozo Day.
That's
Hence,
wild. That's
the class
hilarious.
clown photograph
Yeah.
in our yearbook.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right.
The rest of these are different shots. Some of these are shows, recent shows. The next one down is the 1975, um, who played our Waikiki shell recently. Um, they love playing with camera tricks and video feedback, and uh, they were really impressive. Unbelievable show.
Interesting. Nice.
We can go to the next one.
Yeah, you say that
Uh,
like it's so easy. Here I am trying to figure out how to work this software, and you're going,
ah,
oh, yeah, go to the next one. Oh, no, go back one. Now go forward.
yeah, right. I'm
I
sorry.
remember this picture. This was,
That's the Waikiki shell, and that's with VL 3600s. That's a shot from out in the house,
yeah.
shooting 200 feet away
Oh, wow.
to get that decor lighting in there.
Beautiful.
And this is a group, Cecilia and Capono. It's a local act.
It's beautiful.
Um, I
Beautiful
don't know.
picture. All right, Bob, this is
Yeah,
terrible for radio. We
I
gotta,
know.
yeah, the pictures
We'll
are
we'll
amazing,
we'll,
but
we'll
they're
wait.
terrible for radio.
But okay. Well, let's can that. But the
Well,
the other pictures are basically um, stuff I had to do pivoting during the pandemic,
oh,
because one of the things I realized was I had to diversify my audience, who my clients were. Obviously, concerts were off the books. Nothing was going to happen.
yeah,
So I found us having to reach out to places that I would not normally find work.
yeah,
Of course, the U.S. The military wasn't closed,
yeah.
and so Pearl Harbor was open. So we were asked to light the USS Missouri, and so we did that. We were also asked to light the Iolani Palace, the only palace in the country, and that's actually done with video projectors and with flowers. And the interesting thing about that was during a study, the gal who designed the artwork for this, she told me this story and said, you got to realize in the 1800s, people didn't buy Hallmark cards with a punchline. They gave each other flowers.
Yeah.
And, obviously, roses are red, but it went much deeper than that. There were certain flowers you would get to overcome sadness, other ones to give you inner strength. Um, so she had an entire garden in her backyard. And so that's what we projected on the surface of Yolani Palace. Um, the other place that isn't affected by the pandemic was the FBI building. The FBI wasn't closed,
Yeah.
and it was police week, and I got hired to light the FBI building in blue, and
Huh.
that's what that shot is.
Interesting.
So hopefully people have a chance to see these at some point. Maybe they can look at the recording. But I just wanted to share because you had asked me, so what did you do during the pandemic?
Yeah.
And in 50
Well, I knew what
years,
you did
I've
every
been,
Wednesday because
yes, you're right there.
I saw you pretty religiously every Wednesday.
Indeed.
You were one of the people I looked forward to seeing on Wednesday. There were a few people I didn't look forward to seeing on Wednesdays, but uh, you know, I look back at that warmly. You know what I mean? Like I look back at that
And you
like
should.
COVID was horrible, but
Yes.
I made some real life friends during that time, like we
It's interesting you say
together
that because that's what I wrote too.
together we just kind of endured, you know what I mean? We figured out a way to help each other and keep people from jumping off bridges and stuff. And sometimes we had some good ideas, sometimes we had some really stupid ideas. Speaking, personally for myself, I had some real dumb ones. But you know what? It kept us looking forward to something midweek. We had something to do on Wednesday, and that was
Well,
pretty cool.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. And I
Yep.
really, honestly, I'm not blowing smoke up your Hawaiian skirt. Your what are those Hawaiian skirt called? But your stories, and later on, as COVID matured a little bit, you got into some show and tell stuff that was pretty cool. You've got some amazing, like antique stuff. Just really, really old, cool stuff that you would show.
Ah,
I'm
wait a
guessing one's
second.
popping out here. I got him thinking, uh-oh. What do you
Oh,
got,
oh,
Bob?
you mean
Y-
things like that.
So what is the thing that you're showing us right now for people who can't see
I
it?
mean, I'm in a distance. Okay, thanks for reminding me. This is called a magic lantern. That's a one candle power projector.
Jesus.
And I don't know if you can see this or not. Maybe.
Yep, I can see it.
That's a windmill. Now, you probably remember from your days at Tracoman and the like of selling moving lights. And one of the big things was, oh my gosh, we have rotating gobos.
Yes, yes.
And that was the 80s. Well,
Yeah.
that's the 1880s. And that is indeed a rotating gobo of a
Oh my
windmill. And that's all
God.
it does is if you crank this thing, it'll turn the windmill.
That's
But
insane.
these were used
Where
in the
did you
back
get
rooms to
that
tell.
thing? Like, where do you
I've got
find
more
this
than
stuff?
one. Well, some of it finds me, but I found that in London.
Oh,
This is uh, all the pictures. That's the burning bush. They're all
wow.
all these are painted by hand, and with a shutter in front. Basically, a crossfade would be, you know, open this shutter on this machine, and let's crossfade to this one. And you'd
Wow.
use them for stories in the back tents in the
And that was cutting
1800s,
edge.
and people were amazed. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's crazy. I want to speak to you about business a little bit. Like, you know,
Sure.
I know you and I, connected on a lot of things where we talked about, some of the real dark things that were going on during COVID and, you know, uh, just how to keep companies alive. Like, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for you. It wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for a lot of people out there. But since COVID, my company is different than most in that we didn't really get a lot of money through COVID. We're not an asset based company. We're a software based company. So I have a whole different set of problems and dynamics and stuff. And I
Hmm.
I got real good out of COVID, and then we kind of crashed a little bit when manufacturers started, you know, let's call it getting a little more aggressive when they had excess inventory and stuff.
Sure.
So they kind of damaged the used market a bit. And but one of the things that I think is becoming a real problem, and I talked about this a little bit in the intro, is access to capital and cost of capital. And probably in Hawaii, you're sheltered a little bit because I'm guessing people there will take what you've got for the most part. Like you don't have to go out and buy the latest whatever insert name here. Uh, is that
Yeah,
true or no?
we've done a pretty sizable increase to keep up because we realized if we waited till things were comfortable, 5 or 6 years would have passed.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of shows. I have on average 12 shows a month.
Wow,
You know
that's a
that,
lot.
but that ranges from the smallest things to the largest things. That is what people, because I get asked all the time, why do you do this? What do you love about this that gives you drive to keep doing this every time?
Yeah.
And this is just a huge setup and a teardown. Well, it helps that we have crew. And then
Yeah.
there's also come along, and I'll discuss that more in a minute. But staying on topic, the reason I love this the most is whether it's a wedding, whether it's a product launch, whether it's a new business opening, a concert, a TV show, um, whatever it is, it's the most important thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
And they've invited me to represent them.
Yeah.
And that responsibility is an honor.
Yeah. Oh, well
And
said. Well said. But how do you
so,
keep up? Like I mean again, like moving light prices haven't gone down. Console
no,
prices keep going up. Everything keeps going up, and shows are demanding more and more of it. So what used to be a 60 moving light show now is 160 and stuff like that. Like, so yeah, the income goes up, but it's at a very different scale. Like, so the income for a show might go up from 50 to 60,000, but the cost of those moving lights went up from 1 million to 3 million because there's twice as many as well. The math is tough. Like, and again, capital is very expensive right now.
right. Well, it's important to have equipment available to people. One of the things that happened here was there's a company called Young Brothers, and Young Brothers does freight to the outer islands. And the pandemic happened, and like the airport, they'd never had a situation where everything stopped.
Yeah.
And they have, hundreds, probably even thousands of workers, and they're all there showing up to work, and nothing's moving because at
Yeah.
that point we were all frozen in the headlights.
Yeah.
And this happened for 3 months and nearly took Young Brothers out. And they asked whether the state would allow them to increase their prices, and they did by 45%,
Jesus.
which made outer islands a really tough thing to deal with. Cost of freight would just be prohibitive. So one of the things we did during this time period is now we have a gear that's sitting in Kauai. We have gear sitting in Maui on the Big Island. Now,
Oh.
if you happen to be financially well off and you really want the best of the best, or you have like a convention, an artist that demands that, and that's the way they're going to play, then we're going to ship it out of Honolulu anyway.
Hmm.
But if there's something that comes up quickly, and that happened too, during the pandemic, as we came out of the pandemic, things would confirm very, very late.
Yeah.
30 days out, we were getting shows that people decided, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that that was something we had to deal with. But by having pockets of gear in various locations, that's really expanded our
So
scenario.
do you actually have real estate then on other islands? Like you've got small buildings on other islands, or you're just renting space from freight companies or something? How are you doing that?
No, I've got rental space or rental property. I own my building in Honolulu,
Yeah.
my warehouse here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I didn't want to end up, we're the first in, last out kind of people, and unbelievably, we have some of the worst traffic in America. So where warehouse space is plentiful and cheap, would add hours and hours and hours if something was needed to be added to an event or was
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah.
So I had to buy property in order to ensure that we could work in town and find our
But
solutions
on
into.
the outer islands, like, couple thousand square feet kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, cool. That's
So
smart.
that,
That's really smart. I'm sure the rent and the cost of, like, you probably have one or two guys there or something, and the cost of keeping a place like that is probably cheaper than the freight for one show.
well, and it also opens a door because
Yeah.
if people haven't done shows before, the first thing they want to ask is, well, do you have any gear there?
Yeah.
And being able to answer, yeah, and yes, we can handle, you know, up to a mid-range kind of thing. We could do something tomorrow or the next day if you need.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know
and but
you'd
that
do that.
opens the door. Yeah.
That's
So that's one
smart.
of the things. But so we've expanded. We've found places to send our equipment that's not the highest line, but
Yeah.
we don't have to just simply liquidate it,
Yeah.
and that's worked well for us.
Yeah, that's really smart. So
But
where do
let me
you
also,
oh, go on.
sorry. Well, well, I'm heartened by one thing I saw just today. It said in the last quarter, regardless that we're coming out of all this, our last quarter, the GDP, they believe, has nearly gone up 5%. We're in this battle over interest rates and the like, but the consumer shows no sign of stopping. And people are still getting jobs, and things are marching ahead. And even though
Yeah.
people go, oh my gosh, interest rates are 8% for a house. Gosh, I've lived through 17.5% for a house.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's just cost of doing business, and interest rate is deductible.
Yeah. I don't completely agree with your views on that one. Like, to me, the GDP thing is spin. It's one of those things that you can make look really good. Um, and most of the people that I talk to are hurting a little bit, like their
Mm,
rent has gone up, their mortgage has gone up tremendously, their wage has maybe either gone down, or they're, like, in our industry, you're starting to see layoffs again. And,
mm,
that was unheard of a year ago. Like, they would hire anyone that would walk in their front door. Now they're laying off again. And by they, I
yeah.
mean, sort of a cross section of manufacturers and even some rental companies. Most rental companies are still balls to the wall busy, right? But um, so I don't know. Like, I used to be a really good predictor of things that were going to happen. Lately, I've been terrible. Probably starting with COVID. So my famous day 91 prediction, and it was like 391 or whatever, right? But I feel like our industry's got a bit of a hangover coming next year, and I just
Mm.
feel like 2024 is going to be a tougher year in our industry, and for a number
Well,
of
it
reasons. For
will
a
be an
number of reasons.
election year or two, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, people
Yeah.
don't get motivated to make changes unless you're convinced that you're not happy right now
Well,
either. So
and
there's that in the background.
so many things depend on the geopolitical climate and these wars that are going on and stuff. Like, while I was on this podcast, my girlfriend texted me and said that they've killed the Hamas leader, and so
Mm.
that's probably not going to go over really well, and going to cause some stuff to happen. And I don't know, man. I don't know where it's all going. I'm so happy I have this house in a very tiny little town in Canada that I can go escape to, and nobody points nukes at this little town in Canada. And same with Hawaii. I think you're pretty safe on Hawaii, but
I don't know.
yeah,
I think we're ground zero on some level, but
true.
um,
Yeah, yeah, true.
anyway. But
But
what else happened during the pandemic? I found new blood. I had time to go, looking on Facebook, seeing people posting various things. I've got a young lad, Tyler. I say young, he's less than half my age. He's still young.
yeah,
Um, but he was really eager and posted things that he had done, and like you, I kept thinking, oh, the pandemic. I would tell him, well, when this thing ends in a couple of months, I'll bring you out here and you'll
Yeah.
be here. I ended up bringing him here a dozen times before he finally came over a year, 2 years later,
Really?
and
So
finally
where was he
moved.
from? He was from the mainland? From
Yeah,
somewhere in the US?
I want to say, well, when I picked him up, he was in Oregon, and I
Oh,
brought
okay.
him here.
Yeah.
But he's been a huge asset.
Yeah.
Um, uh, One of the things, if I had criticism in my business, it was people would say, love your business, love what you do, but you have no depth. What if you weren't available that day or something
Yeah.
happened to you?
Yeah.
Then, what's going to happen to the obligation? That's certainly increasing. That left me with having to look for that. And obviously, it wasn't in the first year of the pandemic, but I would look around to find somebody, and he filled that bill.
Yeah, I used to call
And
it the bus test. Like what happens if Marcel gets run over by a bus?
right,
It's the bus
exactly.
test. Does your business withstand the bus test? And it's
Right.
hard, for a business that you've run for 50 years, literally 50 years. Uh it's tough, and you you don't have kids, do you?
I do.
Oh,
I've got kids, but this isn't their thing. So
yeah, same with my son. My son, he's dabbled a little bit, but he doesn't have any passion towards it. I mean, he's still a race car driver. That's part of the problem, but
yeah, I
uh
admire your son.
yeah,
I read all the time and try to keep track of what he's up to, as
I
many people
appreciate
do
that.
in this industry.
Yeah, no, I
You
appreciate
you
that.
you've exposed us to that during COVID. You'd be telling us the stories of
Yeah,
how
ad,
Jeremy was
ad nauseum,
winning.
ad
Yeah, well,
nauseum. Yeah. No,
that makes sense because we all talked about our kids. It was the thing
yeah,
we had control of,
yeah.
kind of.
But I told him all along. I've told him since he was 12. Like, hey, if you want to get into my business, great. If you don't want to, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But it changes what your mindset has to be when you think about succession. And you do have to think about
Yeah.
succession. We're not going to live forever, right? So everyone has to have a succession plan. And the only thing I've told my son is, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you own this company, what are you going to do? And he
Mm.
just looks at me like, with that sort of holy shit look in his face, right? Like, what are you saying, Dad? So, yeah,
Well, he took a different route, but
yeah,
he's following his passion,
yeah.
and
I
that's
love that.
really no different than those of us who are here now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not here because we thought we were going to get rich in the lighting business. We're here because, you loved it. You loved being part of a show. You loved looking up and house lights go dark and, boom, your lights go on. And it's just like that sort of pinch me moment every night, right? So,
So kudos to you. Like my father, you never taught him no,
yeah, yeah. No,
and that's worth a couple of years of education right there.
yeah. You know what? Like, I don't know if you know who Gary V is, Gary Vaynerchuk, big social media guy and
Okay.
marketing guy and stuff. Really smart guy. But he always says that kind of stuff. Like he says, part of the problem with parenting is that parents try to put your kids like, okay, you're going to do this, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do this. And it's a very structured life. And, college isn't what it sort of was one day. Like it's not, college, it doesn't prepare you for real life in a sense. So, I was actually happy when my son came to me and said, Dad, I know you've put aside all this money for college for me, but would you be upset if I don't go? And I said,
Hmm.
not at all. I mean, if that's not what you want to do, then I don't care. Like, this is your life. All I can do is sort of bring you to the water. You got to decide whether you want to drink or not. And so, I love kids who say, like, my son's been living in England this whole year and he comes back in a couple weeks. And I know he's going to go stir crazy when he gets back here because he's lived in England since February. And, you know, you're not just going to come home and fall back into your old life. You're going to want to go somewhere else. And I said, so go
Right.
somewhere else. Pack up and
Yeah.
go somewhere else. Go experience life. Because by the time you're 25, 28, 30, you're going to be married, you're going to have kids on the way, like all that stuff happens. And, you may or may not get a chance to do what you're doing right now. So enjoy life,
I think
figure it out later.
it's so true. I mean, and particularly for creative arts, certainly people have gone to school for it. Some people have done exceedingly well.
Yeah.
Um, but they also then had to be creative enough to distance themselves from the same teachings that everybody else in the room was taught.
Yeah.
If you're a
Yeah.
standout, there's something about you. There's an entrepreneur in there. There's a creative spirit that drives you. But because of that, probably more so than in many industries that we're into, if you've got that drive and you realize your only competition is yourself, and you don't get caught up in the rest of it,
Yeah.
um, you will succeed.
Yeah. I agree with you very much. I mean, you know, I think life isn't about getting deeper into the box. It's kind of about getting out of the box. Like if everybody's going here, maybe you should go over there, check that out, see what it looks like. But, to me, I don't like when people have their whole life figured out when they're 19 or 20 years old, because
Mm,
you're going to miss a lot of things if you've decided everything you want to be and do by the time you're 20 years old. Your brain isn't even fully developed. Like go figure it out. Go learn some stuff first, and then go, you know what? I thought I wanted to be an astronaut, but now I really want to be a lighting guy or whatever, like whatever it is. So, yeah, no, that's cool. So, are you doing anything like, first of all, I forgot to say you're up for this Parnelli Award, which I think is 100% deserved and due and all of that stuff.
thank you.
Um, and it coincides with your 50th year too in with Eggshell Lighting, 50 years old. Are you planning on doing anything big next year for?
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
We will. I mean, we used to throw large parties. I'm sure it's been on pause for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I think but 50 years, it happens once,
Yeah.
hopefully though, with the young people that I've got that are growing into this, that there'll be a 75th and a 100th too. And
Yeah.
I hope they'll find some near black and white only because the color's faded shot of me. And I
Yeah.
might be there someplace on a mantle, but we'll
Well,
see.
do me a
But
favor
but
and
no, I've
invite me.
always,
If
well,
there's
I
like an
will.
event, a party, a weekend, whatever it is, invite me. And I can't promise I'll come, but I'd love to try at least, because A, I love Hawaii and haven't been there in too long, and B, I'd like to come celebrate with you too, because that's the big thing. Like, I don't know if you've
It is.
done the research, but how many 50-year-old lighting companies are there out there?
Not many, not many. And,
I can think of a
at this
few.
point,
Not a lot, but I can think
yeah,
of a few, like Bandit, and is Upstaging 50?
yes. Yeah, a couple of years ago,
Got
but
to be just, yeah.
yes. There's
Yeah, I
one more
mean,
thing that corresponds to next year, and that's going to be the 20th anniversary with my wife.
oh,
So I've
wow.
got there's three major things happening in my life.
You
The
got a lot
50th
going on.
anniversary of a company that I started from when I was a kid, that is now still doing really well in
Yeah,
Hawaii, and the anniversary of with my wife,
yeah,
which will also have to have its degree of celebration, I'm sure.
yeah. You
Um,
can't overshadow
and
that one.
and then being nominated, it's not just that we're up for the Parnelli Award. At this point, we've already won Southwest, and that's a huge part of America. And that isn't just Hawaii. It's Los Angeles, it's San Diego, it's Vegas, it's Phoenix into
Yeah,
Texas.
that's a big deal.
And to be a boutique lighting company here to greet everybody when they finally get to paradise, that's just a life that can't be replicated.
No kidding. No kidding. That's amazing, Bob. Well, you know what? I mean, I think that's kind of a perfect way to end this talk. is is with that. I mean, to me, what you got going on is impressive. It's
If it
exciting.
is.
It's huge. I want to celebrate with you next year for the 50th. I don't usually go to the Parnellis now that it's at NAM, but I might actually go this year because there's other reasons that I need to be in LA. And so, yeah, I mean, congratulations on all your success. Congratulations on life. Hopefully you're completely healthy at this point in life, which is the most important thing.
I'm doing pretty darn well.
You look good.
Life is good.
You look good. You look darn good, Bob. You're taking good care of yourself.
All right. Well, you always make me smile. That helps too.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, I will see you at LDI.
You shall.
Look
Aloha.
forward to it.